What if the woman who shaped your earliest memories still lives inside your mind? Not as she was, but as a silent force steering your choices, your voice, and even your sense of worth. You may have moved thousands of miles away. She may no longer walk this earth. You may not have spoken to her in decades, but her presence is alive within you, not in memory, but in the unconscious code that runs your emotional life. Carl Jung warned us of this hidden force, the mother complex. It's not about blaming your mother. It's about facing the internal image she left behind, that ghost inside you, the one you carry in silence, the one who still whispers, "Don't speak. Stay small. Be good. Be quiet." And here's the truth no one tells you. You will never fully heal until you meet the mother that lives within. But if you stay with me to the very end of this video, you'll learn how to break the psychic chains that have bound your soul to inherited pain. You'll uncover the 8 hidden ways the inner mother controls your life without you even realizing it. And you'll discover the first step toward true psychological freedom. So take a breath and let's begin. 1. The dual face of the mother archetype, the giver and the devourer. In Jungian psychology, the mother is more than the woman who gave you life. She is an archetype, a timeless psychic blueprint etched into the soul of humanity. She appears in every culture, every myth, every dream, and she always carries 2 faces: the life giver, nurturing, protective, loving; the life devourer, smothering, controlling, consuming. Jung called this the paradox of the Great Mother. She is both safety and danger, creation and destruction, warmth and engulfment. If your mother wounded you, whether through absence, manipulation, or unmet needs, this archetype doesn't vanish. It becomes tangled in trauma, twisted in your subconscious. And that's when the inner mother is born. She's not a memory. She's an imprint, a voice you carry, a pattern you reenact. You seek love, but you're afraid to be close. You crave validation, but you fear rejection. You long to feel safe, but something inside sabotages every step. This is not your fault. This is the shadow mother at work, the devouring side of the mother archetype left unintegrated. In dreams, she may appear as a goddess or a monster. In relationships, she hides behind the mask of lovers, teachers, bosses, even spiritual mentors. You don't see them, you see her, and you keep reliving the pain you never resolved. If this message is resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. This space is for those ready to stop surviving and start transforming. 2. The shadow mother in the psychological prison. Beneath the surface of your adult life, beneath the routines, the relationships, the roles, there may be a silent force holding you captive, the shadow mother. This is not the mother who hugged you or hurt you. This is the archetypal devourer, the one who clings, consumes, controls. And unless she is faced directly, she becomes your invisible jailer. Carl Jung warned that this shadow isn't an error. It's an inevitable pole of the feminine archetype. The mother births and devours. She gives life and then demands it back. You see it in mythology: goddesses who swallow their children whole, dragons guarding sacred treasure, queens who smother in the name of love. But you also see it in real life, in mothers who say, "I just want what's best for you," but mean, "I want you to be who I need you to be, so I feel safe." And the child, even as an adult, doesn't fight. They collapse, they internalize the guilt. They believe their freedom is betrayal and their truth is dangerous. So they silence their voice, suppress their dreams, apologize for simply being. This is not immaturity. This is what Jung called psychological infantilization. a state where the body grows, but the soul remains trapped. You may move across countries, change your name, live an entirely different life. But if the shadow mother still whispers in your mind, before every decision, every risk, every moment of joy, then you are not truly free. You are orbiting her gravity, afraid to escape. Because what is her most powerful weapon? Guilt. Not healthy guilt, not moral guilt, but primordial guilt. The kind that tells you, if you choose yourself, you're bad. If you walk away, you'll destroy her. If you shine too brightly, you'll be punished. This is the leash. This is the spell. And this is why so many remain stuck, not because they lack courage, but because pain feels safer than separation. But here's what Jung discovered. The shadow mother isn't just your prison. She's also your initiation. She is the dragon guarding your inner gold, the fear you must face to find your voice, the wound you must name to reclaim your soul. Through active imagination, you can speak to her. You can give voice to your rage, your grief, your truth. You're not fighting her, you're freeing yourself. And when you do that, when you truly face her, the inner child begins to rise. Your psyche begins to remember who it belongs to. Not her, not the past, but you, three, the internal mother, the silent dictator within. She doesn't scream, she doesn't hit, she doesn't even raise her voice, but she controls everything. Carl Jung called her the internalized mother image, a psychic imprint so deeply embedded in your unconscious that it often escapes your awareness for an entire lifetime. You may think she's long gone, a memory, a face in a photo, a voice you barely remember, but she lives on, not as your mother, as the ruler of your inner world. She whispers before you speak, "Don't say too much." Before you create, "That's not good enough." Before you choose, "You'll regret that." She is the voice that once came from outside, but now speaks from within. And the tragedy? She's not even real. Not anymore. She is not your mother as she truly was. She is your childhood perception of her, distorted by fear, shaped by survival, frozen in time. This is the mother imago. If she was critical, cold, absent, or overbearing, then that image becomes your internal compass, and it points in one direction, away from yourself. You abandon your truth to please others. You shrink your light to avoid judgment. You say yes when your soul screams no, not because you're weak, but because the child inside still hopes, if I just obey enough, maybe she'll love me. But here's the reality Jung uncovered. The internal mother does not evolve. She is a psychic echo, and the more you try to win her approval, the deeper you fall into self-abandonment. This inner voice becomes your inner critic, your saboteur, your source of shame. She's not just in your thoughts, she shapes your relationships. You project her onto lovers, friends, mentors, expecting them to heal wounds they never caused. You don't see them as they are. You see them through her eyes. You seek love, but expect rejection. You crave safety, but anticipate control. This isn't just a pattern, it's psychic possession. And the longer she rules, the more you live a life that doesn't feel like your own. But healing is possible, Jung insisted. We must name the mother complex. We must face her, not to destroy her, but to release ourselves. We must allow the exiled feelings, rage, grief, betrayal, to rise. We must reclaim the voice we buried, the boundaries we feared, the truth we swallowed. Because this isn't rebellion. This is individuation. This is your sacred right to exist as a self, not a shadow. To truly heal, you must do more than disarm the shadow. You must also reclaim the light, the nurturing mother, the wise protector, the source of creation. And this doesn't come from fantasy. It comes from building a new inner relationship through kind self-talk, through rituals of care, through mythic symbols, through art, breath, and embodiment. You begin to mother yourself, and for the first time, you begin to feel whole. Fourth, separation and the necessity of the independent ego. There comes a moment, quiet, painful, and holy, when you realize that to become yourself, you must first leave behind the version of you that was shaped to please her. Carl Jung called it one of the most sacred psychological thresholds, the symbolic separation from the mother complex. This is not rejection, not rebellion, not cruelty. It is the birth of your soul. Without this separation, Jung warned, there can be no individuation, no true I, no real freedom, because as long as the internal mother governs your identity, you act from reflex, not from truth. You become the obedient child in adult disguise, smiling, pleasing, hesitating, waiting to be seen, while secretly afraid to be real. This psychic unbinding is a second birth. The first gave you a body. This one gives you a self. And like all real births, it is messy, bloody, loud with grief, flooded with silence. Why do so many resist it? Because the child within believes, if I leave, I'll die. If I grow, I betray her. If I change, I'll be alone. And society supports this fear. We're told loyalty is love, that to honor our mother, we must never outgrow her. But Jung saw this for what it is, an archetypal illusion, a psychic spell passed down through generations, keeping adults trapped in childhood roles, forever sacrificing authenticity for approval. When you delay this inner separation, the consequences are subtle but severe. You defer decisions, doubt your instincts, choose relationships that echo your wound. You function, but you don't live. Jung said, the psyche prefers a known hell to an unknown heaven. And so we stay, in pain, in loyalty, in stories that aren't ours. But when the soul finally says enough, something sacred happens. You begin the hero's journey, not across continents, but inward, into the forest of your unconscious. There you meet the mother's shadow, the one who gave and the one who devoured. You mourn the love you never received. You grieve the childhood you never had. You rage not to blame, but to break the bond. This is the crucifixion Jung described, the death of the compliant child, and from it the sovereign adult is born, not perfect, not polished, but real. This rebirth brings the void, a space where her voice no longer rules. It is terrifying, but it is yours. You must now fill it with your own voice, your own desires, your own truth. Because if you don't, if you leave that space empty, her shadow will return, stronger, subtler, hungrier. That is why separation is not enough. It must be followed by creation. You must build a new inner structure, not borrowed, not inherited, but forged in the fire of awareness. This is the rise of the stable ego, the adult who no longer performs to be chosen, who no longer fears rejection more than self-betrayal. This ego doesn't seek perfection, it seeks alignment. It doesn't beg for love, it shares presence. It isn't loud, it's rooted, and behind it all lies a spiritual truth. The moment you walk away from the mother complex, you don't reject love, you return to truth. And in that truth, you become not the follower of someone else's script, but the author of your own becoming. 5. 9 psychological symptoms of the unhealed mother wound. Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Nowhere is this more true than in the silent ripple effects of the unhealed mother wound. You don't always know it's there. You don't always name it as hers, but it lives in your body, in your patterns, in your pain. These are not quirks, not random misfortunes. They are archetypal echoes calling you to awaken. Here are 9 deep-rooted psychological symptoms that signal a mother wound still at work beneath the surface. 1. The inner critic that never sleeps. You hear it before you speak. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? This isn't ordinary self-doubt. It's the internalized maternal voice, a psychic echo of conditional love, a childhood where affection was earned and mistakes were punished with silence. Jung called it a complex, an autonomous force feeding off your growth. 2. Fear of autonomy clinging to dependency. You dream of independence, but tremble at the edge of freedom. Decisions feel dangerous. Success feels like betrayal. Failure becomes a twisted act of loyalty. This is the psyche regressing, longing to be cradled by the archetypal mother, even if it means losing yourself. 3. Sacred guilt and ancestral shame. You thrive and feel guilty. You grow and feel you've abandoned her. This is not personal guilt. It's archetypal guilt, the unconscious belief that your survival is tied to her emotional well-being. You carry her regrets, her unlived life, her pain. Jung saw this as inherited sorrow, passed down like psychic DNA. 4. Chronic people-pleasing and self-abandonment. You betray your truth to avoid rejection. You say yes to feel safe. You fear boundaries will make you unlovable. This is not kindness. It's survival. It's the ego still wearing the mask of the obedient child, afraid to lose the mother's favor. 5. Repeating relationships that reenact the wound. You're drawn to those who feel like home, but home was painful. So you end up with partners who criticize, control, or neglect, and call it chemistry. Jung warned, the psyche recreates trauma not to punish, but to repair. But if unconscious, it becomes fate. 6. The core belief, I am not enough. This hums beneath everything, a silent ache that no success can soothe. You overachieve, you overextend, you apologize for existing. This belief didn't come from logic. It came from emotional starvation, from not being seen. 7. Fear of expression and suppressed creativity. You long to speak, to shine, to create. But something inside whispers, don't. It's not safe. When the mother archetype is wounded, your creativity becomes a threat, your light a target. You dim yourself to survive. 8. Somatic symptoms in the body's cry. What the mind represses, the body reveals. Fatigue, chronic pain, autoimmune flares, disordered eating. These are not random. They are the body's symbolic language, expressing what the soul still carries. 9. Spiritual disconnection and existential emptiness. You seek, you try, you search, but nothing satisfies. Because beneath it all, you are severed from the feminine principle, the great mother within. You feel orphaned, not from family, but from the sacred source of belonging. These symptoms are not flaws. They are messages. They don't say, you're broken. They say something vital was lost. Go back and reclaim it. Healing the mother wound isn't about blaming her. It's about finding you. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this video. Your story may be the light someone else has been waiting to see, and your comment below might give language to a soul still struggling in silence. 6. Embracing the shadow mother, a ritual of inner transformation. This isn't just psychology, it's soul work, it's descent, it's rebirth. Carl Jung taught that facing the shadow mother is not optional. For anyone seeking wholeness, it is vital. This is not about intellectual understanding, not about polite forgiveness, not about saying I'm over it. It's about stepping into the cave where your rage, grief, and power have waited in silence. It's about reclaiming the pieces of your soul you abandoned to be loved. In alchemical terms, this stage is called the nigredo, the blackening, the death of illusion. You stop pretending she was perfect. You stop hiding your pain, and you finally see the devouring aspect of the archetypal feminine, not as evil, but as sacred, because what you fear holds your fire. This is the truth. The shadow mother guards your treasure, your creativity, your intuition, your power, your ability to choose yourself. But she won't hand it over. You must face her, not to destroy her, but to integrate her. Jung taught a method for this: active imagination. You enter the inner space. You speak to her. You let her speak back. You allow the exiled child inside to rage, to weep, to ask, "Why didn't you love me the way I needed?" And maybe the shadow mother will answer. Maybe she'll show you her own fear, her own unmet needs, her own inherited pain. This is not about excusing harm. It's about reclaiming authority. In this dialogue, the ego transforms from abandoned child to sovereign adult. The illusion of all good or all bad dissolves, and wholeness begins. This process is death, the death of the psychic prison, the death of the false self, the death of who you became to keep her close. But in this death, something ancient awakens: the rejected feminine, the part of you that feels deeply, that knows without proof, that creates without apology, that trusts darkness as much as light. Integration isn't just healing the mother wound, it's reclaiming your original self. This work needs ritual. Write the unsent letter. Burn it in sacred ceremony. Speak the words you never said aloud. Stand before a mirror and declare, "I honor you, but I no longer belong to you. I belong to myself." Rituals tell the unconscious, it is done. Jung said, we need initiation, thresholds, symbols. Without them, we repeat the story. But with them, we mark our liberation. And then something miraculous happens. You stop seeing your mother, internal or external, as a goddess or a monster. She becomes human, wounded, imperfect, flawed, but no longer the center of your universe. True compassion doesn't come from obligation. It comes from insight, from the clarity that sets your soul free. You don't have to hate her. You don't have to forgive her. You only need to free yourself. 7. Forgiveness is not the goal. Freedom is. You've been told that healing ends with forgiveness, that you must forgive to move on, that a good soul releases the past and offers love in return. But Carl Jung knew better. He taught that true healing does not begin with moral obligation. It begins with something much harder: the raw descent into your own pain, the willingness to see what really happened, not just in your memories, but in your soul. Forgiveness that's forced out of guilt, spiritual pressure, or cultural duty is not healing. It's suppression dressed as virtue. And suppression is what created the wound in the first place. You don't need to forgive to be free. You need to feel what you were never allowed to feel: the rage, the grief, the longing, the betrayal. You need to let the inner child weep, not just for what happened, but for what never did. You don't owe the one who hurt you a ritual of absolution. You owe yourself a reckoning with the truth. And here's the paradox. When you finally stop trying to forgive, when you stop performing healing to make others comfortable, that's when freedom begins. Forgiveness, if it comes, is a byproduct of integration, not its goal. Jung warned of premature forgiveness, what he called a psychological bypass, a spiritual mask, a soothing lie. Because as long as your inner world is still ruled by guilt, your soul is not free. You are still editing your truth to remain lovable in the eyes of the mother. That is not love. That is bondage. To truly heal, Jung insisted, you must reclaim your rage, honor your grief, validate your boundaries, return to your inner authority. You must stop seeking closure from the one who never gave you safety. You must stop shrinking so that others can remain comfortable. You must become the parent your soul was waiting for. This is not rebellion. This is individuation, a sacred rupture with illusion, and a return to reality, where your worth is no longer tethered to someone else's wounds. When the mother is no longer a goddess, when she is no longer a tyrant, but simply a fallible, wounded human, you collapse the projections, you break the spell, and in that space something else may emerge. Not forgiveness, perhaps, but peace. You may never say, I forgive you, and still be free. You may never feel love and still live in light, because healing isn't about reconciliation. It's about restoration of your inner truth. And the moment you stop waiting for permission to be angry, to be real, to walk away, that's the moment your soul takes its first real breath. 8. Rebirth beyond the mother complex. Healing the mother wound isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of a new one, a sacred crossing into a life that is truly yours. Carl Jung taught that the unraveling of the mother complex is not simply about resolving trauma. It's about dismantling the false self, the self shaped by survival, silence, and sorrow. As that false self dissolves, something sacred stirs in the void it leaves behind. Not the child returned, but the adult reborn. This is the emergence of the sovereign self, no longer governed by guilt, no longer chasing validation, no longer waiting to be chosen. You begin to parent yourself, to listen inward, to stand tall without apology. You move through the world, not as a pleaser, not as a performer, but as a presence. This is individuation, the psychological and spiritual birth of the real you. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. Not about becoming who you should be, but remembering who you are beneath the roles. And from this new center, something else begins to bloom. Creativity, clarity, purpose. Your life is no longer a reaction. It's a creation. You don't seek love to heal the wound. You love because you are healed. You don't chase belonging. You embody it. And then you return to the world. But not as a wounded child looking for rescue. You return as someone who can offer presence, wisdom, and truth. Your relationships shift. You no longer reenact the old drama. You relate from fullness, not need. Your work changes, no longer driven by proving your worth, but by expressing your soul. You become the one who ends the cycle, the ancestor who heals the line. Because here lies the miracle. Healing the mother wound is not just personal, it's ancestral, it's transgenerational. You are not just reclaiming your own life, you are rewriting the legacy for those who come after you. And here is your final truth. You don't return to who you were before the pain. You become who you were meant to be because of it. You take the pen back from the mother. You stop writing her story. You begin writing yours. As Jung said, your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens. Now you're awake, and the page before you is blank. If this message found you, it wasn't by accident. You are ready to let go, to become, to begin again. Before you go, take a moment. Subscribe to this channel for more journeys into the psyche. Like this video if it stirred something true in you. And leave a comment below. Your story might be the light someone else is searching for. You are not alone. You never were. And now, you walk forward not as someone's child, but as your sovereign soul. We'll see you on the path.